I flipped one valve and exposed a secret buried under my ranch. I turned off my own water at 6 a.m. Nothing unusual, just following a county order. 10 seconds later, a woman came running out of her mansion screaming that I'd cut off an entire neighborhood. Deputies showed up ready to arrest me, but then the sheriff asked one question nobody could answer. That's when everything started to unravel. If you've ever seen power get a little too comfortable, stick around. And if stories like this mean something to you, consider subscribing. At exactly 6 a.m., I put my hand on the valve and turned it shut. It wasn't dramatic. No hesitation. No second thoughts. Just a clean, hard twist of steel against old threads. The kind of movement I'd made 1,000 times before. The county drought order had come through the week prior. 70% reduction on municipal use. Fine by me. I didn't depend on county water anyway. Never had. Out here on my land, you either build your systems right, or you learn the hard way. The valve sat where it always had, half buried in dry Texas dirt at the edge of my south pasture. Rusted edges, thick iron housing, older than most of the homes that had sprung up next door. It marked the line, county supply on one side, my private system on the other. I shut off their side. Simple. Legal. Done. I wiped my hand on my jeans, picked up my coffee from the fence post, and took a sip. Morning was quiet. The kind of quiet that settles deep into your bones if you've lived long enough to appreciate it. No traffic. No voices. Just wind moving through cedar and the low hum of distant cattle shifting in the pasture. That's how it was supposed to stay. Then 10 seconds later, everything broke. At first, it was subtle, a stutter, a change in the sound of water pressure somewhere beyond the ridge. Then silence. And then, a scream. Sharp, high, not anger at first, panic. I turned my head toward Whispering Oaks. The subdivision pressed right up against my southern fence line like it had grown there overnight. Rows of polished stone houses, trimmed lawns, artificial green where dry ground used to be. The kind of place that didn't belong out here but acted like it owned the horizon. Another scream followed, louder this time. Then I saw her. Vanessa Whitmore came running out of her back patio doors barefoot, silk robe half-tied, hair slicked with shampoo foam that hadn't even been rinsed out. Water dripped down her shoulders, leaving a trail across the polished stone as she crossed her yard like something had gone terribly wrong. She didn't stop at her fence, didn't slow down. She came straight toward mine. "You son of a bitch!" Her voice hit hard, echoing across both properties. "You cut our water!" I stared at her for a second, not reacting. Not because I didn't hear her, but because what she said didn't make sense. Our water. Not your water. Not the neighborhood. Our. She slammed up against the fence line, gripping the wire like it was the only thing holding her upright. Shampoo slid down the side of her face, stinging her eyes, but she didn't wipe it away. She was too focused on me. "My entire house just lost pressure," she snapped. "The whole block did." I took another sip of coffee, slower this time. "Ma'am," I said, calm and level, "I shut off my own county line." Her jaw tightened. "That's not just your line," she shot back instantly. "Too fast, too certain." That was the second thing that didn't sit right. I set my cup down. "Funny," I said. "County seems to think it is." For a split second, something flickered in her expression. Not anger. Not yet. Something closer to calculation. Then it vanished. She reached into her robe pocket, pulled out her phone, and dialed with sharp, aggressive taps. Right there in front of me. 911, she said, loud enough for me to hear every word. "Yes. I need deputies out here immediately. My neighbor just sabotaged our water supply. He's tampering with infrastructure. Infrastructure. There it was again. I leaned back slightly, crossing my arms. Now I wasn't confused. Now I was paying attention. Because people don't just throw words like that around unless they know something they're not saying out loud. She turned away from me, pacing along her side of the fence, still dripping, still furious, but now there was something else underneath it. Urgency. Send someone now, she insisted. This is affecting multiple homes. Multiple homes. I let that sit for a second. Then I looked back at the valve behind me. I knew that system, every inch of it. Had worked on it myself, maintained it for years. That line fed one place, mine. Always had. There was no branch, no split, no extension into her property. At least, not one I'd ever authorized. The sound of tires on gravel broke the moment. Fast, heavy, official. 3 county cruisers rolled in through the main dirt access road, kicking up dust that hung low in the morning air. They didn't slow much when they saw us. Didn't hesitate. That told me something, too. They'd been given a story before they arrived. Doors opened, boots hit ground, and just like that, I went from a man standing on his own land to a man being treated like a problem. Vanessa pointed at me the second they stepped out. "That's him," she shouted. "He shut it off. He cut the whole system." One of the deputies, young, tense, rested his hand near his belt like he expected resistance. I didn't move, didn't raise my voice, didn't do anything except stand there and wait. Because if there's one thing I learned after a lifetime working systems, real systems, the kind that don't forgive mistakes, it's this. When something doesn't make sense, you don't react. You observe. The last one out of the cruiser was Sheriff Cole Maddox. He didn't rush, didn't shout. He just walked forward, eyes moving between me, Vanessa, and the valve behind me, taking it all in. "Morning, Ethan," he said. "Sheriff?" He nodded once, then glanced at Vanessa. "You mind telling me what's going on?" She stepped forward immediately, voice sharp, controlled now, like she'd rehearsed it. "He shut off the main water feed," she said. "It killed pressure across the entire subdivision. This is infrastructure interference. It's illegal." Maddox didn't respond right away. He looked at me, then at the valve, then back at her. And finally, he asked the one question that made everything stop. "Why would shutting off his water affect yours?" Silence hit the fence line like a wall. Vanessa didn't answer, not right away. And in that gap, just that small pause, I felt it. That shift. Something underneath all of this. Something that didn't belong. Because out here, systems don't cross unless someone builds them to. And I sure as hell hadn't built one that fed her mansion. So the only question left was, who did? Nobody answered Sheriff Maddox right away. Vanessa opened her mouth like she was about to, then stopped. Just for a second. But that second was enough. I'd spent too many years around people under pressure not to recognize hesitation when I saw it. It wasn't confusion. It was calculation. Daniel Ruiz stepped forward then, carrying a pressure gauge kit in one hand. He didn't look at Vanessa. Didn't look at me. Just walked straight past us to the valve I'd shut off 10 minutes earlier. "I'm going to check the line," he said, voice low, professional. Maddox nodded once. "Go ahead." Vanessa shifted, crossing her arms tighter across her chest. The anger was still there, but now it had edges, controlled, like she was trying to steer where this was going. "That's not necessary," she said. "We already know what happened." Ruiz didn't even look up. "That's so," he replied, kneeling down. He connected the gauge, twisted it into place, and waited. A few seconds passed. Then he frowned slightly, adjusted the valve housing, and checked it again. "What are you seeing?" Maddox asked. Ruiz didn't answer immediately. He stood up slowly, wiped his hand on his jeans, and looked past the fence, toward Whispering Oaks, then back at me. Pressure dropped the second this line was shut, he said. That's what I've been saying, Vanessa snapped. He disrupted the system. Ruiz shook his head once. No, he said. That's not what I said. That stopped her. Maddox took a step closer. Explain it. Ruiz pointed at the valve. This line feeds his property, he said. That's it. That's how it's supposed to work. Supposed to? Maddox asked. Ruiz nodded slowly. Yeah. He crouched again, tapped the metal housing lightly with his knuckles. But the pressure drop didn't stop here, he continued. It carried. Carried where? Maddox asked. Ruiz looked back toward the subdivision. Through the system, he said. Into Whispering Oaks. The words hung in the air like something that didn't belong there. Vanessa didn't speak, didn't interrupt, didn't correct him. She just stood there, staring at the ground between us, like she was trying to decide how much to say and how much to keep buried. Maddox turned toward her. You want to tell me how that works? He asked. She lifted her head, eyes sharp again. It's a shared system, she said quickly. The infrastructure ties into multiple properties. That's standard in developments like ours. Ruiz shook his head before she even finished. No, it's not, he said flat. She shot him a look. Excuse me? That's not how county supply is structured out here, he replied. Every subdivision has its own feed. Separate lines, separate meters. There's no crossover. Vanessa stepped closer to the fence, voice tightening. Well, clearly there is, she said. You just confirmed it. Ruiz didn't react. He walked past her instead, heading along the fence line, eyes scanning the ground like he was tracing something invisible. Maddox followed. I stayed where I was, because I already knew something had shifted. Not in their words, in their positions. Vanessa wasn't pushing for my arrest anymore. She was pushing for control. Daniel, Maddox said, watching him move. What are you looking for? Ruiz stopped about 20 feet down, crouched, and brushed away a patch of dry dirt near the fence. Metal caught the light. Just a sliver. But enough. What's that? Maddox asked. Ruiz didn't answer right away. He cleared more dirt with his hand, exposing a thin edge of something buried just below the surface. A pipe. Not old, not corroded like the ranch systems. Clean, straight, engineered. Ruiz sat back on his heels, staring at it. That shouldn't be here, he said quietly. Vanessa took a step forward. That's part of the community system, she said, too fast again. Maintenance must have... Ruiz cut her off. No, he said. He stood up, brushing dirt from his hands. This isn't county work, he continued. And it sure as hell isn't old ranch infrastructure. Maddox looked between them. Then what is it? Ruiz hesitated. Not long. Just long enough to make it clear he was choosing his words carefully. It's a connection, he said. That shouldn't exist. Silence hit again. Heavier this time. Because now it wasn't just a question. It was proof. Vanessa took a step back from the fence. Subtle. But I saw it. The first real retreat she'd made since this started. You're jumping to conclusions, she said, but there was a crack in it now. You don't know what you're looking at. Ruiz didn't respond. Maddox did. Maybe, he said, but I know what I'm not looking at. He stepped closer to the exposed pipe, studying it. And I'm not looking at something that belongs on your side of the fence, he added. Vanessa's jaw tightened. You can't make that determination without a full inspection, she said. And you certainly can't accuse— I didn't accuse anyone, Maddox interrupted. Calm, firm, yet. That word landed hard. Yet. Ruiz glanced at me then. Not long, just enough to acknowledge something unspoken. Then he turned back to Maddox. I need to run a full pressure trace, he said, and I need access to their pump system. Vanessa's head snapped up. That's private property, she said immediately. Maddox didn't even look at her. If it's connected to his line, he said, nodding toward me, then it's not just your property anymore. Another pause. This one longer, more dangerous, because now the direction had changed completely. We weren't talking about me shutting off water anymore. We were talking about how her system was connected to mine, without permission, without record, without explanation. Vanessa looked between them, weighing something. Then she straightened, smoothing her robe like she was putting herself back together. You're overreacting, she said. This is a misunderstanding. We can resolve it internally. Maddox finally looked at her again. No, he said. We're past that. He turned toward his deputies. Nobody's being arrested, he said. Not today. The younger one hesitated. Sheriff? That's an order, Maddox said. Then he looked back at me. Ethan, he said, don't touch that valve again. I won't, I replied. Not because I was worried, but because I didn't need to. Whatever was happening here, whatever had been built under my land, it wasn't hidden anymore. And Vanessa Whitmore knew it, because for the first time since she'd come running out of that mansion, she wasn't shouting, she wasn't threatening, she wasn't in control, she was quiet. And quiet, in a situation like this, usually means one thing. There's more to the story. A lot more. I didn't say anything else after that. Didn't argue. Didn't push. Didn't try to prove a point standing there at the fence. Because whatever we'd just uncovered wasn't something you settle with words and raised voices. It was something you follow. And I'd learned a long time ago, when a system behaves wrong, you don't fight it. You trace it. The deputies cleared out slow, still unsure what they were walking away from. Ruiz stayed long enough to take a few photos of the exposed pipe, then told Maddox he'd file an official report by the end of the day. Vanessa didn't say another word to me, just turned and walked back toward her house, dripping water still marking her path across that polished stone like something unfinished. That silence stuck with me more than anything she'd said, because Vanessa Whitmore wasn't the type to back down, not without a reason. By the time the dust settled, I was alone again at the fence line, staring down at that strip of metal just barely exposed beneath the dirt. Clean edges, straight line, nothing accidental about it. Somebody put that there, and they didn't tell me. I crouched down, brushing away a little more dirt with my hand, just enough to follow the direction. South. Straight into Whispering Oaks. I stood back up, slow, thinking through everything that had led to this moment, because this didn't start this morning. It started months ago. 3 months, to be exact. That's when Vanessa Whitmore first decided my ranch was a problem. At the time, it looked like the usual HOA nonsense. Noise complaints, livestock smells, visual degradation. She filed paperwork with the county every week like it was her job. Irrigation runoff, fence height violations, dust from my access road. Things nobody had cared about for decades suddenly became urgent issues. At first, I handled it the way I always had. Calm, straightforward, by the book. Let the inspectors come, show them the systems, walk them through the land. Every time they left with nothing, because there was nothing there. But Vanessa didn't stop. She escalated. More complaints, more paperwork, more pressure. Not on the ranch. On me. And that's when it stopped feeling random. I walked back toward the house, boots crunching against dry dirt, running the pattern in my head again. She never once pushed on my cattle, never cared about the workshop, didn't even bother with the fences after the first week. Every complaint, every report, every inspection came back to water. Usage, flow, access. I reached the porch and set my coffee down, now cold. That's when I remembered the offer. 3 weeks ago. Vanessa had driven up my access road like she owned it. White SUV, clean lines, out of place against dust and cedar. She stepped out dressed like she was closing a deal, not visiting a ranch. Didn't waste time with small talk. Just handed me a folder. Inside was a purchase offer. Not for the ranch, not for the house, not even for the pasture. 8 acres, one specific section, the land surrounding my spring. Triple market value. Cash, no contingencies. That's what caught my attention. Nobody pays that kind of money for land like that unless they already know what it's worth. I told her no before she even finished talking. She smiled. Not surprised. Not offended. Just certain. You'll reconsider, she said. Eventually. I remember watching her drive off, thinking it was arrogance. Now, standing there looking back toward the ridge, I realized it wasn't. It was expectation. She wasn't guessing. She was waiting. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. Unknown number. I answered anyway. Ethan Walker. Ethan, it's Daniel Ruiz. His voice was tighter than before. Go ahead. I ran the preliminary trace, he said. Pressure readings from the subdivision side. I didn't interrupt. Didn't need to. Your shutoff didn't just affect surface flow, he continued. It dropped baseline pressure across their internal system. I looked back toward the fence. Meaning? I asked. A pause. Then, meaning whatever connection exists. It's not temporary, he said. It's integrated. Integrated. That word hit different. Permanent? I asked. Looks that way. I exhaled slowly. Daniel, I said, there's no record of any shared line on my land. I know, he replied. I checked. Another pause. Then his voice dropped a little. There's something else. I waited. They've filed documentation, he said. Recent, last few weeks. What kind of documentation? Utility access claims, he said, referencing a historical corridor. That didn't sit right. What corridor? I asked. That's the problem, Ruiz said. I can't find one that matches the filings. Now I was fully focused. Send me what you've got. I will, he said. But Ethan, he hesitated. Be careful how you handle this, he added. If that line's what I think it is, this isn't just a civil issue. I ended the call without answering, because I already knew. This wasn't about complaints. It wasn't about HOA rules. It wasn't even about water usage anymore. This was about access, and someone had gone out of their way to build it, hide it, and then try to make it legal after the fact. I stepped off the porch, heading back toward the workshop. There's a point where a situation stops being inconvenient and starts being deliberate. I just crossed that line, because now I had 3 things: a hidden pipe, a pattern of pressure, and a land offer that never made sense until now. Which meant the next question wasn't if this was intentional. It was how far they'd already gone to cover it up, and how much of it was sitting right under my land, waiting to be found. I didn't waste time guessing. If someone had built something underground and then tried to paper over it after the fact, the answer wasn't in the dirt. It was in the records. I stepped into the workshop, grabbed my laptop off the bench, and made one call. Claire Benton picked up on the second ring. "Ethan Walker," she said. "This about the Whitmore complaints?" "Not anymore," I replied. "I need you to pull everything tied to Whispering Oaks. Water access, utility filings, easements, anything filed in the last 90 days. There was a pause. That was Claire thinking. "Something changed," she said. "Yeah," I answered. "I shut off my water this morning. Their entire subdivision lost pressure." Silence, then a sharp inhale. "That's not possible," she said. "I know." Another pause, shorter this time. "Give me an hour," she said. "Don't touch anything else." I ended the call and sat there for a second, staring at the grain of the workbench. This had moved fast, too fast, and that usually meant one thing. Whoever built that line didn't expect it to be discovered this way, which meant they weren't done yet. 47 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Claire again. "Talk to me." Her voice was different now, tighter, focused. "They filed something," she said. "What kind of something?" "A shared utility access claim," she replied. "Filed through a private contractor, not directly through the HOA." I leaned back in the chair. "That doesn't make it legal," I said. "No," she agreed, "but it gives them something to point at if this gets challenged." "Based on what?" "That's where it gets interesting," she said. I heard papers shifting on her end. "They're referencing a historical utility corridor," she continued, "supposedly dating back decades." My jaw tightened. "There's no corridor on that land," I said. "I know," she replied. "I checked county plats going back 50 years. Nothing recorded. No easement. No right-of-way. No shared infrastructure." "Then what are they using?" Another pause. Then, "A survey." That word hit harder than it should have. "What kind of survey?" I asked. "An old one," she said. "Stamped, signed, but not recorded through proper county channels." "Meaning?" "Meaning it exists," she said, "but it was never approved." I stood up slowly. "That's not enough to build anything," I said. "No," Claire replied. "It's not." Another beat. "But it's enough to justify it, if nobody checks too closely." I walked over to the wall where I kept my property maps, old and new, layered over each other from years of updates and inspections. "Send it to me," I said. "Already did." The file came through a second later. I opened it. At first glance, it looked legitimate. Clean lines, professional markings, coordinates that matched the general area. But the more I looked, the more it fell apart. The corridor they'd drawn cut straight through my south pasture, right where Ruiz had found that pipe. "That's not real," I said quietly. "I know," Claire replied. "No county seal," I continued. "No approval stamp. No easement signatures." "Exactly." I zoomed in further. "That survey was never finalized," I said. "It's a proposal." "Correct," she said. "Then how are they using it?" "They're not claiming it was approved," Claire replied. "They're implying it was. I let that sit. Because that wasn't just aggressive. That was deliberate." "Claire," I said, "if someone builds infrastructure based on an unapproved survey, they're trespassing," she finished. "And if they try to legalize it after the fact, they're creating a paper trail to cover it." I looked back at the image. The line was clean, precise, planned. "This wasn't random," I said. "No," Claire agreed. "It wasn't." Another beat passed. Then she added something that shifted everything. "There's a timestamp on the filing," she said. "When?" 3 weeks ago." I didn't respond right away. Because 3 weeks ago was when Vanessa made her offer. Triple market value for that exact stretch of land. That's not a coincidence, Claire said. No, I replied. It's not. They tried to buy it first, she continued. When that failed, they filed the claim. And built anyway, I added. Looks that way. I closed the file slowly, because now the pattern was complete. Complaints to pressure me, offer to acquire the land, filing to justify access, and a hidden line already in the ground. They hadn't been reacting. They'd been moving forward the whole time, step by step. Claire, I said, what happens if this goes public? She didn't hesitate. If that line connects your water source to their system without legal rights, she said, that's unauthorized use at best, infrastructure theft at worst. And the HOA? They're exposed, she said, legally and financially. I nodded, even though she couldn't see it. And Vanessa? That depends, Claire replied. How involved she is. I thought back to the fence line, her hesitation, her silence, the way she stopped pushing the moment Ruiz confirmed the pressure drop. She knows, I said. I believe that, Claire answered. I looked back at the map one last time, because now I wasn't looking at a mistake. I was looking at a plan, one that had already crossed from paperwork into my land. Then we're not dealing with a misunderstanding, I said. No, Claire replied. We're dealing with someone who built first and planned to argue later. I ended the call, sat there in the quiet. And for the first time since this started, I wasn't trying to figure out what was happening. I knew. The only thing left now was to prove it. And once I did, there wouldn't be any room left for Vanessa Whitmore to explain it away, because paper can lie, but land doesn't. And neither do pipes. I was back at the fence within 15 minutes, shovel in hand. Not because I wanted to dig, because I needed to see how far this went. The section Ruiz exposed earlier wasn't enough. Just a glimpse, a suggestion of something wrong. But if someone had built a connection into my system, it wasn't going to stop at a single point. It had to run somewhere. And I intended to follow it. I drove the shovel into the dirt just beside the exposed edge and started clearing it back, slow and controlled. No rush, no guesswork, just removing layers until the shape became clear. Metal came into view fast, cleaner than anything that belonged on this ranch. Straight line, factory cut, no corrosion. This wasn't old. This was recent. I scraped along the length of it, widening the trench just enough to trace direction. South, same as before, toward Whispering Oaks. I stood there a second, looking down at it, then grabbed a pry bar from the truck and worked the dirt loose another few feet. The line didn't bend, didn't branch. It ran clean and direct, like it had one purpose, to move water from my land into theirs. A truck door slammed behind me. I didn't turn. Figured you'd be back out here. Sheriff Maddox, I kept digging. Didn't expect it to be shallow, I said. It wasn't supposed to be found, he replied. That made me pause. I straightened up and looked at him. You already know what this is, I said. He stepped closer to the trench, hands on his belt, studying the pipe like he'd seen enough cases to recognize the shape of one forming. I know what it looks like, he said. I'm waiting to see what it proves. That depends how far it runs. Maddox nodded once. Ruiz is on his way back, he said, bringing equipment this time. Good, because this wasn't guesswork anymore. It was evidence. 10 minutes later, another truck rolled up, county issue. Daniel Ruiz stepped out with a portable scanner rig and a case that looked heavier than it should have been. He didn't waste time on greetings, just walked straight over, dropped the case, and started setting up. "I pulled subdivision pressure logs," he said as he worked. "Baseline draw levels don't match their reported supply." I leaned against the fence post. "Meaning?" "Meaning they've been pulling more water than their system can legally provide," he said. "Consistently." Maddox looked at him. "For how long?" Ruiz didn't answer immediately. He powered up the scanner, adjusted the sensors, then glanced at the exposed pipe again. "Long enough that this wasn't temporary," he said. "That lined up with everything else. Complaints, offer, paperwork, construction. They hadn't just tapped into my system. They'd built around it." Ruiz ran the scanner across the ground, slow passes back and forth, mapping the subsurface structure in real time. The screen flickered, then stabilized into lines. Clean ones. Too clean. "There," he said, pointing. The image showed the pipe extending forward, then widening. "Is that a junction?" Maddox asked. Ruiz nodded slowly. "Looks like it." My jaw tightened. "Where?" Ruiz adjusted the angle, ran another scan, then stepped forward about 10 feet and stopped. "Here," he said. I grabbed the shovel again. No hesitation this time. I dug faster. Not sloppy, but deliberate. Each layer coming up clean until metal hit again. But this time, it wasn't just a pipe. It was a housing. Rectangular. Steel. Buried deep enough to avoid casual detection, but not deep enough to survive scrutiny. Ruiz crouched beside me, brushing dirt away from the edges. "Valve chamber," he said. Maddox stepped closer. "Open it." I wedged the pry bar under the edge and pushed. The lid didn't give at first. Then it cracked. A tight, sealed sound. Recent. I forced it up the rest of the way. Inside. It wasn't ranch work. It wasn't county work. It was something else entirely. Multiple lines feeding through, pressure regulators, flow splitters, all industrial grade, all new. Ruiz leaned in, scanning the components with a practiced eye. "No permits on anything like this," he said. "Not in this county." Maddox didn't say anything. He didn't need to, because we were past speculation now. This wasn't a theory. This was built, installed, used. I stepped back, letting it all settle. The system wasn't small. It wasn't temporary. It was designed to take water from my land and distribute it into Whispering Oaks, without record, without permission, without me. A car engine roared from the subdivision side. Fast, too fast. I didn't need to turn to know who it was. Vanessa's SUV slid to a stop near the fence line, tires kicking up dust as she stepped out. This time, she wasn't wet. She wasn't panicked. She was controlled. But her eyes went straight to the open chamber, and for a fraction of a second, she lost it. That composure cracked just enough to show what was underneath. Fear. Real fear. "What the hell are you doing?" she demanded, crossing toward us. Maddox didn't move. Standing on his property, he said, "Looking at something that doesn't belong here." She stopped short. "That system is part of the community infrastructure," she said. "You have no right to tamper with it." I looked at her. Really looked this time. "You built it on my land," I said. Her expression hardened. "That boundary is under review," she shot back. "No," Ruiz said quietly. "It's not." He stood up, holding the scanner. "I checked coordinates," he continued. "This chamber sits inside Ethan's property line." Vanessa didn't even glance at him. She kept her eyes on me. "You should have taken the offer," she said. There it was. Not denial, not confusion. Admission, just wrapped in frustration. Maddox caught it too. "You want to repeat that?" he asked. She didn't. Didn't need to. Because she'd already said enough. I stepped closer to the open chamber, pointed at the system inside. "You didn't just connect to my line," I said. "You built your whole system around it." Silence. She didn't argue. Didn't correct. Didn't even try. Because there wasn't anything left to say that would change what we were all looking at. Ruiz closed the scanner case slowly. "This isn't a repair issue," he said. "This is unauthorized diversion." Maddox nodded once, then turned to Vanessa. "Which means we're not dealing with HOA violations anymore," he said. "We're dealing with something else." She didn't respond, but her eyes shifted. Not to me, not to the chamber, to the subdivision behind her. Like she was measuring something. Time, risk, damage. And in that moment, I understood. This wasn't just about one pipe or one decision. This was bigger, much bigger. Because systems like that don't get built overnight, and they don't get built by accident. Which meant the next question wasn't just, who built it? It was, how long had they been taking from me, without me ever knowing? That question didn't need an answer right away, because standing there, looking into that chamber, I already knew enough. Long enough to build something that complex. Long enough to rely on it. Long enough to think no one would ever question it. Vanessa crossed her arms, steadying herself, pulling that composure back together piece by piece. "You're making this into something it's not," she said, voice controlled again. "That system services multiple homes. It's necessary infrastructure." I let out a short breath. "Necessary for who?" I asked. She didn't answer that. Instead, she shifted the angle. "This land has been under review," she said. "There are historical considerations." "No," Maddox cut in. Calm but final. "There aren't." He stepped forward, boots stopping just short of the open chamber. "I've got county maps going back decades," he continued. "There's no recorded easement here. No shared utility agreement. No right-of-way." Vanessa held his gaze. "Records don't always reflect reality," she said. That was the first time she said something honest. Because that's exactly what this was. Reality built first. Records adjusted later. Ruiz crouched again, running his hand along one of the regulators inside the chamber. "This isn't patchwork," he said. "This is engineered flow control." He tapped one of the valves. "Pressure-balanced distribution," he added. "Means whoever built this expected steady demand." "How many homes?" Maddox asked. Ruiz didn't look up. "More than a few," he said. That landed heavy, because Whispering Oaks wasn't small. Every lawn, every sprinkler, every kitchen tap. Running through this, through my land, without my knowledge, without my consent. Vanessa shifted her weight again, but this time she didn't step forward, didn't try to take control. She stayed exactly where she was, calculating. "You don't understand the full situation," she said. "There are agreements in progress." I shook my head. "You don't build first and negotiate later," I said. Her eyes snapped to mine. "Sometimes you do when delays cost millions," she replied. There it was. Not HOA language, not compliance, not neighborhood standards. Money. That's what this had always been about. Maddox caught it too. "Who's funding it?" he asked. Vanessa didn't answer. Ruiz stood up slowly. "I can pull manufacturing stamps off these components," he said. Trace suppliers, installation timelines. Vanessa's jaw tightened. That won't be necessary. It is if we're trying to determine legality, Ruiz replied. Maddox nodded. Start documenting everything, he said. Photos, serial numbers, layout. Ruiz moved immediately, pulling out his phone and beginning a full visual record. I stepped closer to the chamber again, looking deeper this time. There were multiple output lines, each one labeled, each one routed with precision. This wasn't a temporary fix. It was a permanent system. And then I saw something else. A secondary valve, set slightly apart from the rest. Manual override. I pointed at it. What's that for? Ruiz leaned in, examining it. Emergency bypass, he said. For what? He paused. Then, to isolate the source, he replied. I straightened slowly, meaning they can shut off my flow and still keep theirs running? Ruiz didn't answer. He didn't need to, because the design said it all. They hadn't just tapped into my system. They'd built control over it. Vanessa saw the realization land, and for a moment, she didn't deny it, didn't argue, didn't even pretend. She just stood there. And in that silence, everything shifted. Because this wasn't just theft anymore. It was control. Maddox stepped back, pulling out his phone. I'm calling this in, he said. Vanessa's head snapped up. You don't need to escalate this, she said quickly. We can resolve it privately. That option passed when you called 911, he replied. She took a step forward. Sheriff, think about what you're doing, she said. This affects an entire community. He looked at her, then back at the chamber, then at me. Yeah, he said. It does. And that was the moment her position collapsed. Not visibly, not dramatically, but internally, because she realized something. This wasn't contained anymore. It wasn't paperwork. It wasn't intimidation. It was evidence, physical, documented, traceable. And once that kind of evidence gets out, you don't control where it goes. I stepped away from the trench, wiping my hands clean. You didn't just build next to my land, I said. You built into it. She didn't respond, didn't even look at me. Her attention had shifted again, back toward the subdivision, like she was already thinking ahead. Next move, next step, next way to contain this. That told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't done, not even close. And if she wasn't done, then neither was I. Because now I wasn't dealing with complaints, or fines, or HOA rules. I was dealing with something bigger, something deliberate, something built to last. And the only way to stop something like that is to prove it doesn't belong. Which meant one thing. I turned toward the house. Sheriff, I said. Maddox looked at me. I've got documents you need to see. Because if they thought they could control the system, they hadn't read the one thing that mattered most. Who actually owned the water. I didn't run, didn't rush, just walked back toward the house with purpose, boots steady on dirt I'd known my entire life. Maddox followed without asking questions. Ruiz stayed behind a moment longer, still documenting the chamber, then closed his case and caught up. Vanessa didn't move from where she stood, but I could feel her watching, because she knew what was coming next. Inside the workshop, the air shifted. Not quieter, just heavier. The kind of weight that settles when something long buried is about to surface. I went straight to the back wall. Old cabinet, steel latch, no lock. Inside sat a weathered folder, edges worn soft from years of being handled just enough to remember it mattered. but not enough to disturb it. My father handed it to me 20 years ago. Didn't give a speech, didn't explain much, just said one thing: keep this where you can reach it. I pulled it out and laid it flat on the workbench. Maddox stepped closer. Ruiz moved to the side, watching. I opened it. Inside, original deeds, water rights filings, survey maps older than anything Whispering Oaks had built their identity on, paper that didn't guess, didn't imply, didn't adjust itself to fit someone else's narrative, paper that told the truth. I slid the first document forward. State-recognized water rights, I said. Filed and reaffirmed across 3 separate county reviews. Maddox picked it up, reading slow. Source: natural spring. Primary usage: agricultural and private system. Exclusive control: Walker property. He looked up at me. Exclusive, he repeated. Means no shared access, I said. Ruiz leaned in, scanning the margins. These are clean, he said. No amendments, no easement attachments. Because none were ever granted, I replied. I pulled out the next document. Older, stamped, hand-signed. This one predates the county's current system, I said. Back when they first mapped water allocation out here. Maddox read it, brow tightening. Priority rights, he said. Senior claim. I nodded. That spring doesn't just belong to me, I said. It comes before anything built around it. Ruiz exhaled quietly. Which means, he said, they can't legally draw from it at all. Not without my permission, I replied. And you never gave it, Maddox added. No, I said. He set the papers down slowly, then looked back toward the open workshop door, toward the direction of that chamber, toward Vanessa. Everything lined up now. The pipe, the system, the filings, the pressure readings. None of it was accidental. None of it was unclear. It was theft. Structured, engineered, and backed by the assumption that nobody would challenge it. Ruiz stepped back from the table. If this goes to review, he said, they won't have anything to stand on. Maddox nodded. They won't want it to go that far, he said. I leaned against the bench. No, I agreed. They won't. Because if this moved past this point, if it left this room, it wouldn't just be about one pipe. It would be about every gallon they'd taken, every report they'd filed, every system they'd built on something they didn't own. Footsteps outside cut through the moment. Sharp, fast. Vanessa. She stopped at the doorway, but didn't step inside. Didn't cross the threshold. Like she understood, on some level, that once she did, she wouldn't be able to control what happened next. You're making a mistake, she said. Maddox turned toward her. Doesn't look like it, he replied. Her eyes moved to the documents on the table. She didn't come closer. Didn't need to. She recognized them. And that was the moment her strategy shifted. Not aggressive anymore. Not confrontational. Calculated. You don't understand the position this puts everyone in, she said. I looked at her. No, I said. You don't understand the position you put yourself in. She took a breath, measured, controlled. There are people involved in this development who won't let it collapse, she said. This system supports an entire community. Ruiz stepped forward slightly. On stolen access, he said. She ignored him, kept her eyes on me. You shut that water down permanently, she said. You're not just affecting me. There it was. Not denial, not defense. Consequence. And for the first time, she wasn't threatening me. She was warning me, because now she knew what I knew, and she knew what would happen next. Maddox stepped toward the door. "This doesn't stay here," he said. "I'm filing a report." Vanessa's composure cracked, just slightly. "You do that," she said, "and this turns into something bigger than you think." Maddox didn't stop. "It already is." He stepped past her. Ruiz followed. I stayed where I was for a second longer, watching her, because there was something else there now. Not fear, not anger, pressure, the kind that builds when time runs out. "You should have taken the offer," she said quietly. I shook my head. "You should have asked permission." She held my gaze, then turned, walked back toward her house without another word. I looked down at the papers again, at the signatures, at the dates, at the one thing she couldn't change: ownership. This wasn't about arguing anymore. It wasn't about proving a point. It was about what came next. Because once something like this gets exposed, it doesn't stay contained. And if Vanessa Whitmore was already this controlled under pressure, then whatever came after this wasn't going to be simple. It started that night, not with noise, with movement. Around 10:40 p.m., headlights cut across the south ridge where the chamber sat buried open under temporary markers Ruiz had left behind. I saw them from the porch. 2 sets, no county markings, no official vehicles. Too late for inspections, too quiet for anything legitimate. I grabbed my keys and drove down slow, lights off until I got close enough to see silhouettes moving near the trench. 3 men, reflective vests, hard hats, working fast, too fast. They weren't inspecting, they were installing. I stepped out of the truck and walked toward them. "Evening," I said. No one answered. One of them kept working the pipe, tightening something with a wrench. Another was inside the open chamber, adjusting a valve. "County didn't schedule anything out here tonight," I added. Still nothing. Then the third man turned, finally acknowledging me. "Emergency stabilization," he said. Flat voice. No hesitation. I looked at the trench, looked at the tools, looked at the fittings laid out beside them. None of it matched what Ruiz had been documenting earlier. "These aren't inspection tools," I said. No response. I stepped closer. "Step away from that line." That got their attention. The man in the chamber climbed out fast. "Sir, you need to back up," he said. "This is active infrastructure." "On my land," I replied. The third man reached for his phone. Not calling me, calling someone else. I saw it happen, and I knew exactly what was coming next. 3 minutes later, sirens. Fast. Closer than they should have been. Deputies rolled in hard, dust kicking up behind them, lights flashing across the ridge like this was something urgent. Weapons drawn, not routine, not cautious, aggressive. "Hands where we can see them," one shouted. I froze, didn't move, didn't argue, because I understood the setup the second I saw it. Workers on site, me confronting them. Nighttime, no witnesses, and behind me, in the back window of my truck, my rifle, legal, stored, but visible, perfect. Deputy Harris stepped out first, scanning the scene. "Ethan," he said, "what's going on?" Before I could answer, "He threatened us," one of the workers said immediately. Fast, clean, rehearsed, said it like it had already been decided. I looked at him, didn't speak, didn't react, because I knew arguing now wouldn't help. This wasn't about what happened. It was about what they were trying to make it look like. Another set of headlights cut across the ridge. Different angle. Faster. Claire Benton. She didn't even fully stop the car before stepping out, tablet already in hand. "Hold on," she said. "Nobody moves." Harris frowned. "Claire." "Just wait," she cut in. She walked straight toward him, flipping the screen around. "Drone footage," she said. I felt the shift before anyone said a word. Harris leaned in, watched. The deputies behind him lowered their stance slightly. The footage showed everything. The trucks arriving first, the workers unloading tools, opening the chamber, starting work. Me arriving after. No threats, no raised weapon, no confrontation beyond words. Clear, complete, undeniable. Harris straightened slowly, then looked at the workers. "Want to explain that?" he asked. Silence. No one answered this time. Claire stepped back, arms crossed. "They weren't stabilizing anything," she said. "They were reconnecting the line." That word landed hard. Reconnecting. Meaning it had already been shut off. Meaning they were trying to restore the system before anyone could stop them. Harris walked over to one of the trucks and opened the side compartment. Inside, not inspection tools, not safety gear, pipe fittings, couplings, pressure seals, everything needed to rebuild flow. Fast. He closed the door slowly, then turned back. "Who sent you?" he asked. No response. One of the deputies moved in, checking paperwork. "Sheriff," he said. "Work orders." Harris took them, read them. His expression didn't change, but his tone did. "These aren't county-issued," he said. Claire stepped closer. "They're fake," she added. "Wrong formatting, wrong seal." Harris looked up at the workers again. "This isn't maintenance," he said. "It's tampering." That word changed everything. The same accusation Vanessa had used that morning, now pointed back at her. Because that's what this was. Not confusion, not misunderstanding. A coordinated attempt to restore access before the evidence caught up. Harris motioned to his deputies. "Detain them." No resistance this time. No arguments. Just silence as cuffs went on and tools were set aside. I stood there, watching it unfold. Because now the roles had flipped, completely. They came out here to make me the problem. Instead, they proved exactly what they were trying to hide. Claire stepped beside me. "You okay?" she asked quietly. "Yeah," I said, then looked back at the chamber, at the half-finished connections, at the system they were trying to bring back online. "They're running out of time," I added. Claire nodded. "Which means they're going to push harder." I already knew that. Because people don't take risks like this unless they have something to lose. Something bigger than one pipe. Something bigger than one HOA. And if Vanessa Whitmore was willing to set me up, call deputies, fake documents, send crews in the middle of the night, then whatever she was protecting had to be worth all of it. Harris walked back over, folding the work orders. "This isn't over," he said. "No," I replied, then looked past him, toward the subdivision, where one house still had lights on, second floor, facing the ridge, watching. Vanessa. She didn't come down this time, didn't step in, didn't interfere. She just watched. Because now she knew something, too. Her window to control this was closing, fast, and whatever her next move was, it wasn't going to be quiet. It wasn't. By morning, the entire situation had shifted from private land dispute to something public, deliberately public. Vanessa called an emergency HOA meeting, mandatory attendance. That alone told me everything I needed to know. People like her don't bring things into the open unless they think they can control the outcome, or rewrite it. The community center sat at the front of Whispering Oaks. Stone exterior, glass walls, the kind of place designed to look official even when it wasn't. By the time I pulled in, the parking lot was already full. Residents, county staff, a few unfamiliar faces, legal maybe, and Sheriff Maddox. He stood near the entrance, arms folded, watching everything come together. Claire was already inside. Ruiz, too. Vanessa was at the front of the room when I walked in. Composed again. Perfectly dressed. Hair set. Voice steady. Like none of the last 24 hours had happened. That was her play. Reset the narrative. Control the room. She waited until the seats filled before she spoke. "Thank you all for coming," she began. "There's been some disruption to our water system, caused by external interference." Her eyes moved to me. Not aggressively. Strategically. "This situation has been misrepresented," she continued, "and I want to make sure everyone understands what actually happened." Murmurs moved through the room. People were confused, concerned, because they'd all felt it. The pressure drop, the interruption, their perfect system wasn't stable. Vanessa stepped to the side, gesturing toward a set of printed documents laid out on the table. "We have infrastructure in place that supports this entire community," she said. "And yesterday, that infrastructure was tampered with." There it was. Same word, same accusation. Repackaged, directed, controlled. She turned toward me. Mr. Walker shut off a primary feed line without consideration for the broader system. That got attention. A few heads turned, questions forming. Exactly what she wanted. Before anyone could speak, Maddox stepped forward. "Ma'am," he said, calm but cutting, "you're leaving out a few details." The room quieted instantly. Vanessa held her ground. "Sheriff, this is a private HOA matter." "No," he said. "It's not." That landed hard, because the tone had changed. Authority had shifted, and everyone in the room felt it. Maddox stepped up beside the table, placing a folder down in front of her. "Let's get something straight," he continued. "This isn't about a homeowner shutting off his water." He opened the folder. "It's about how your entire subdivision was connected to it." Silence. Heavy. Immediate. Vanessa didn't move. Didn't speak. Because she knew what was coming next. Claire stepped forward, pulling up a digital map on the projector behind them. "This is the recorded property line," she said. "And this," she overlaid another image, "is the undocumented pipeline discovered yesterday." Gasps. Low, controlled, but real. Residents leaned forward, looking, seeing, understanding piece by piece. "That line runs from Mr. Walker's spring system directly into Whispering Oaks," Claire continued, "without any recorded easement, without any legal authorization." Vanessa stepped in quickly. "That's under dispute." "No," Ruiz said, stepping forward now. "It's not." He pointed at the screen. "I verified coordinates personally," he added. "The system sits entirely within Ethan Walker's property boundary." The room shifted again. Not confusion anymore. Concern. Because this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was exposure. Vanessa tried to pivot. "These are technical interpretations. They're facts," Maddox cut in. Then he reached into the folder and pulled out the documents. The ones from my workshop. He didn't rush. Didn't dramatize. Just held them up. "These are the water rights records for that spring," he said. And then he started reading. Exclusive ownership. Priority claim. No shared access granted. Each line landed like a weight in the room. Because people understood what that meant. Even if they didn't know the law, they understood ownership. They understood control. And they understood they didn't have it. Vanessa's composure cracked. Not fully, but enough. You're misinterpreting. I'm reading, Maddox said flatly. He finished the last page, closed the folder, then looked out at the room. This subdivision has been drawing water from a source it has no legal right to access, he said. Silence. Total. Absolute. You could feel it. People weren't whispering anymore. They weren't reacting. They were processing. Because everything they thought was stable wasn't. Everything they trusted was built on something they didn't own. One of the residents stood up. You're saying our water comes from his land? Ruiz nodded once. Yes. Another voice. What happens if he shuts it off? No one answered immediately, because the answer was obvious. Vanessa stepped forward again. This is being exaggerated, she said quickly. We have contingency systems. Do you? Claire asked. Vanessa didn't respond, because she couldn't. And everyone saw it. That was the moment the room turned. Not loud, not chaotic, but clear. The shift from trust to doubt, from confidence to fear. Maddox stepped back. We're opening a formal investigation, he said. Effective immediately. Vanessa's eyes snapped to him. You can't. I can, he replied. Then he gestured toward the deputies at the back of the room. And we will. She stood there. Still. Silent. Because there was nothing left to control, nothing left to redirect. The narrative had moved past her, out of her hands, and into something she couldn't manage. I stayed where I was, didn't step forward, didn't say anything, because I didn't need to. Everything that mattered had already been said. Everything that needed to be proven was. And as the room began to stir, questions rising, voices building, I realized something. This wasn't the end of it. Not for them. Not for the people who lived here. Because they weren't the ones who built this. They were the ones who bought into it. And now they were the ones who had to live with the truth. That everything they relied on, everything they paid for, everything they trusted, was running on something that was never theirs to begin with. The room didn't explode. It unraveled, slow at first, then all at once. Voices started rising, questions, accusations, confusion bleeding into anger. People weren't looking at me anymore. They were looking at Vanessa. And for the first time since I'd seen her step out of that house, she didn't have control of the room. You told us this was fully certified, one man said, standing up from the middle row. Another voice followed. We were promised independent supply. Vanessa raised her hands, trying to steady the room. This is being taken out of context. It's not, Claire said, calm but sharp. She stepped forward again, placing another set of documents on the table. Permit records, she said. Water certifications filed with the county. Every one of them references independent sourcing. Ruiz added, which doesn't exist. The weight of that hit harder than anything else, because now it wasn't just about illegal access. It was about misrepresentation. Fraud. A woman near the front shook her head slowly. We paid for this, she said. We bought into this. Vanessa didn't answer. Couldn't. Because the truth was already in the room. Maddox stepped forward again, pulling a folded document from his jacket. This is where it moves past civil, he said. He opened it. Read it once. Then looked directly at Vanessa. Vanessa Whitmore, he said, voice steady. You are being placed under investigation for unauthorized water diversion, falsification of infrastructure records, and conspiracy to misrepresent utility access. The room went quiet again, not confused this time. Final. Vanessa took a step back. You don't have enough to. Maddox didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. We've got enough to start, he said. That was it. That was the moment everything broke. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a clean, irreversible shift. Vanessa looked around the room, at the people she'd been managing, directing, controlling for months. Now they weren't looking at her the same way. They weren't following her. They were questioning her. And she saw it, really saw it. You have no idea what you're doing, she said, voice lower now. Not sharp, not controlled, strained. Maddox didn't respond. 2 deputies stepped forward. She didn't resist, didn't argue, just stood there as they took her by the arms. But before they turned her toward the exit, she looked at me. And there it was. Not anger, not even frustration. Something closer to disbelief, like she still couldn't accept that it ended this way. You could have taken the deal, she said quietly. I held her gaze. No, I said. You could have asked. They let her out. The room didn't follow. No one moved, because everyone was still trying to process what just happened, what they'd built, what they'd bought, what they'd trusted, all tied to something that didn't belong to them. Maddox turned to the room one last time. This isn't over, he said. There will be further review, further action. But for now, this system is suspended. That word hit harder than anything else. Suspended. Because now, they felt it. The reality of what losing that water meant. I didn't stay. Didn't need to. There was nothing left to say inside that room. Everything that mattered had already been put on the table. So I walked out, back into open air, back toward my truck, back toward land that didn't shift just because someone tried to rewrite it. 3 months later, Whispering Oaks wasn't the same place. The HOA dissolved under legal pressure. Multiple residents filed claims. Property values dropped fast once the truth got out. Developers pulled out. Investigations expanded. And that system, the one buried under my land, was removed. Every section of it. Documented. Filed. Gone. I restored my own lines the way they were meant to run, simple, direct, mine. One evening, standing out by the same fence line where this all started, I turned the valve again. Water flowed back through my system. Clean, controlled, right. No pressure drop. No echo into someone else's property. Just the way it was supposed to be. I stood there a while, listening to it settle. Because out here, things don't belong to whoever claims them. They belong to whoever holds the truth. And the truth doesn't bend, doesn't adjust, doesn't disappear when someone tries to build over it. It waits until someone finally decides to stop letting it be taken. I didn't shut them off. I just took mine back.
What I learned from this is simple. If something matters, you better know exactly what you own, and you better keep the roof closed, because people don't always take what's theirs. Sometimes they take what's yours and count on you not noticing. And by the time you do, they've already built their version of the truth around it. The only thing that holds up in the end is the noise of pressures. It's what's written down, what's recorded, and what you're willing to stand on without backing off. Out here, let's isn't just dirt. It's history, responsibilities, and a life you don't cross unless it's yours to cross. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't fight louder. It's stay steady long enough for the truth to speak for itself. If you ever deal with something like this in HOA, a neighbor, or anyone trying to push past what's rightfully yours, go ahead and drop a one in the comments. If you stand your ground no matter how much pressure they brought, type yes. And if you approach a story about standing firm, knowing your rights, and seeing things through the right way, take a second to surprise. There's more coming, real stories about quiet strength, common sense, and holding your ground when it's matter most.